One of two things has happened on the site of the former Indian residential school in Kamloops, BC. So either we have one of the most horrific mass murders of children in history that has occurred there, or it's one of the most socially damaging hoaxes we've ever seen in modern memory or modern history. In either case, it's critical that excavations are carried out to confirm just what happened. And it's been over 2 years since over 200 sites considered to be possible child's graves were identified with ground penetrating radar, also known as GPR, but no further investigation into the matter appears to have been done. Now, could you imagine the outrage if we never excavated and investigated at the Picton Farm site when it was discovered that murders had taken place there? The allegations at the Kamloops school site are more horrific and involve several orders more victims than Picton's acts, yet there's been no forensic follow-up. When the GPR anomalies at the school site were publicly reported in 2021, it rocked the nation and made international headlines. We had protests erupting across the country. Over 70 churches have been burned to the ground. Canadian flags were kept at half-mast for over 6 months, and a new national holiday was created to address the tragedy. Not to mention, of course, the government floodgates of spending and chronic apologies opened right up. Yet no further investigation was done. Now, of course, people are starting to speak up. They're saying, wait, what happened? Questions are being asked, and why shouldn't they be? Stories claimed that 200 children were killed and secretly buried in an apple orchard in the 1950s and 60s. The perpetrators in that case might still be alive and on the loose. Also, shouldn't we be trying to identify these victims so the remains can be repatriated to their families? In response to the questions that people are starting to ask now, the government, though, is responding by saying it might illegalize the questions. An independent special interlocutor on unmarked graves has asked the Justice Department to illegalize what they're calling residential school denialism. And Justice Minister David Lametti has said he's open to the idea. The person assigned to dealing with the alleged graves appears to be more concerned with shutting down discourse than actually dealing with what's happened with these graves. Now, of course, they're using the term denialism purposely to try and draw a parallel to Holocaust deniers. There's several reasons, though, we can't compare the questioning of the lack of investigation into alleged graves with people who question the actual existence of the Holocaust. I mean, to begin with, there were records tracking the horrific mass murder carried out during the Holocaust. The Nazis were actually horrifically meticulous record keepers when it came to that. It was known who entered those camps and who was killed. Now, residential schools kept record as well. The schools needed to do so, if only to ensure they got their government transfers per child. Deaths were recorded, but there's no records of over 200 children dying and being buried in Kamloops. The Holocaust also had witnesses in the millions, actually, from the Allied forces and Russian liberators who showed up in the camps to local citizens in the areas of the camps to the survivors of the camps to the camp guards. The atrocities committed were well witnessed and corroborated. Now, while there's stories have been made of children being hung from hooks and thrown into the furnace at the Kamloops school and things such as that, claims that children were taken out in the night and forced to dig graves to bury their compatriots, but there's no corroborating witnesses to these acts. The Holocaust left millions of families seeking lost loved ones for decades, but there's no records of any families claiming to have had children disappear at the Kamloops residential school site. So where did these kids come from? And where were their families? Where are their families? Most importantly, encountering deniers, the Holocaust had bodies, millions of them, from pits filled with charred bones and ash to mass graves to literal piles of bodies found by liberators. At the Kamloops site, to date, not a single body has been recovered. The count is 0. GPR, it's an effective tool for finding ground disturbances, but it can't distinguish between what could be a grave or what could be an old outhouse pit. Excavations must be done, and this was stated even as part of the original report on the GPR anomalies found at the Kamloops site. In a different site, 6 months after the Kamloops anomalies were discovered, a GPR survey was carried out on the site of a former hospital in Edmonton, where it was alleged that Indigenous victims of ill treatment were buried. The GPR identified 34 anomalies thought to be graves. Yes, everybody was rending and losing it there. Oh my God, here we go. It's even more. So with the supervision of Indigenous elders, the anomalies were all carefully excavated over the course of several days. but no human remains were found. Not a bit. It's not unreasonable or hateful to ask questions about something as important as the possible mass murder of children. Demanding an investigation of these alleged crimes actually is the opposite of denialism. It's outrageous we've allowed the nation to be turned upside down over the GPR anomalies while refusing to investigate further. There are some very valid reasons to question what may or may not have happened in the old apple orchard in Kamloops. Illegalizing questions won't make them stop. It's only going to convince people something's being covered up. If we want to end what's being called denialism, we need to start digging. Show us the bodies. Then we can get on with trying to find the killers and giving closure to the families. Well, that's what's got me going now, guys. I mean, it's insane. They talk out of both sides of their mouth, Well, we've had a mass murder. We've had one of these horrific things that happened, but no, we can't investigate further. Well, no, it doesn't work that way. We do have to investigate. We got to find out just what the heck happened there. But apparently pretty soon it's going to be illegal to even ask for that. And that's very, very troubling.